Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this next episode of What Do I Know? This being episode number 18. In this episode, I'm going to explore with you and let you know what happened in the remainder of November 2021, what went down through December 2021, and what happened throughout January of 2022. Because believe you me, it was anything but quiet. So, we left it with certain members of Anfield Parish Council reading out stolen emails. The linchpin of that being Councillor John Smith. And he was still doing that, despite already having a solicitor's letter. When he ignored that solicitor's letter and was so flippant towards it and then continued reading these emails, and we also had the revelation, of course, that the monitoring officer had been speaking to a member of the public, we decided we had to act. So our legal team was called back in, and this time a far harder letter was sent to Councillor Smith. And I will admit, I deliberately picked the day, and it was me and me alone, deliberately picked the day that it was delivered to him by special delivery courtesy of the postman who executed that special delivery for us, and to whom I want to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude for all his hard work. I don't think it'll take a genius to work out what that day was. It certainly wasn't an important day to me, but it was to Smithy. I'll leave that one for you to work out. I think you should get it easily, really. So that letter was sent, and it was about hanging around and waiting to see if the message sunk in. And we wouldn't know that until the Clown Council met in December of 2021. In the meantime, we also looked upon things and said that if these reports, which are now dead in the water, are going to get published, there are some very serious lies in there about us. We were also acutely aware that there was still a lot of people in the village talking to us, and I mean a lot of people. I was getting emails as I was going out for walks, when I had the chance. I was getting asked a lot of questions, and these approaches were very amiable, amicable, decent. And it quickly became very clear towards when I say us, I mean not just Brian, myself and Barry, but our friends, our families, members of the Hamforth Ratepayers Association Independent Party, that we had to get the truth out there. We had to break the ice. We had to break the silence. So we did. We put together a newsletter. And I'm going to absolutely confess up here that the vast majority of that newsletter was not written by Barry, and it wasn't written by Brian. It was written by myself and two others. We were the ones behind it. Not Barry, not Brian. But of course, things went through the test. We have strict guidelines publication within the party, and we put it through that. There were some bits taken out, some bits actually added. And then we got out there and we delivered our newsletter, and we really did pick the times of day that we went. I mean, for example, I did a chunk of the Westward down here and just beyond Merriton Road Park, and I had to have the right footwear on. It was dry, but hell, it was damn cold and it was icy. But I was out, and it was dark when I was doing it. I was doing it the manner that a certain party trained me to do it. And I carried that out. Yep, we had others on the Westward who, when I was out at work, who would take the newsletter around. We even sent a copy of that newsletter to Estimate Bay. You probably, I don't know, but you might have heard the gasps from Hamforth when it was delivered. We knew there was going to be a reaction from HPC, but the reaction we got was not quite the one we thought we would get. Still, it made us laugh, and I'm going to work up to that in this video. So we got through November. We also agreed as well with this revelation of serious breach of confidentiality that we were going to have to write a formal complaint about the monitoring officer. It was also clear as well that this breach of confidentiality ran much further than any of us had anticipated, because an article about these so-called findings and a report was put in the monitoring officer. It appeared on wilmslow.co.uk, which it shouldn't have done. Now, we did spot a couple of things in the responses put in by members of the public, and we did enclose these in our letter of complaint. Both these were put in by Peter Moore, and I'm gonna read them out. Okay, pause and then break it down. Okay, now here goes. The first highlighted passage is: there is a much bigger story here, and when finally the CEC's independent barristers report finally comes out, people will be able to decide what sort of man we have had as mayor and still Handfull's ward councillor. That's Peter Moore. Nice. He also goes on, he says, he finally, that means Barry, resigned on the day he received the CEC report done by an independent barrister. This meant he didn't have to explain his breaches of the code of conduct to the Conducts Committee. Well, number one, he wouldn't have gone before a Conducts Committee because Cheshire East hasn't got one. It got rid of that one back in, what 2011, 2012, when the Localism Act came in. But, as you can see from both of these statements, it's clear that Peter Moore has got information that he should not have even seen. Now, it's quite clear to me where he's got that information from, and that information, quite clear, it's come from his wife. Quite clearly, his wife, as a counsellor then, I mean, he's a counsellor now, has shown him these reports. Quite clearly, confidentiality has not been adhered to. Those publications were made on the 25th of November 2021. And again, they form part of the meeting with our legal team. We had that meeting and it was decided, and the barrister evaluated confidentiality, and it was, in her opinion, that confidentiality hadn't just been breached, it had been completely shattered. So there was now, we could physically prove and evidence that the integrity of these investigations was completely, not just maligned, it was knackered, it was shattered, it was dead. It had none. If those investigations had had a shred of integrity, that's just gone down the gurgler. It's just gone. It's dead, finished. So we ended up right at the beginning of December, the 1st of December, which was a chaotic day, having an extensive meeting with our legal team and fully preparing our letter of formal complaint. Also on that day, Barry had to attend with his dear wife Sue a Friends of Handfull Station meeting. He sat next to Roger Small to, in Barry's words, keep him quiet and make him realise, he's got to behave himself. But what was disturbing was the way the mob riddled all round the then Deputy Leader of Cheshire East and tried to run all over him, literally like scunted slime. It was absolutely horrible from what I was describing. It got Barry's wife so annoyed she got up and she left. And Sue doesn't do that kind of thing. But moving along, we knew that we had to put in this formal complaint against the monitoring officer. We had no choice. And alongside that, we were putting formal complaints in left, right and centre about ITV, Sky, the Observer, the Times, the Mail, the Express, the Observer, about Jackie Weaver and the nonsense, Channel 4 and the nonsense that she was peddling, the lies that she was trying to tell, and how she was still being made to be out to be this hero when she was nothing more than a villain, and a complete villain, and what I would say is a very incompetent villain at that. It's still, I'm gonna go out and say this. It still shocked and amazed us that despite us actually stating things out there, nobody would want to take us on and believe us, just about the fact that we were in possession of all the evidence. I think a lot of people, a lot of places, particularly in the media, got to look at themselves and realise you kicked the gift horse right in the bollocks. You could have had the biggest story, potentially your career. And if you play your cards right, and I mean this now, you play your cards right, you could still have it. And I'm particularly looking at, there's a particular BBC show I've written to a few times and you've not got back to me, and I think you know who you are. Here's a chance for you, a golden opportunity. Again, what I'm saying is just don't kick the gift horse in the bollocks. Come and meet it this time, because you never know. You might have one of the biggest stories and the biggest episodes of a scandal that runs so deep that it's quite incredible. So we made our formal complaints against the monitoring officer vis-a-vis breach of confidentiality, and of course we could prove there was a major breach of confidentiality. That first formal complaint went in on the 7th of December and we sent it to the then CEO. We also copied it into the then leader and deputy leader. We also detailed as well in our formal complaint why the investigations are now were completely dead. And we regaled again the points that we'd sent to the monitoring officer back in June of this particular year, 2021. It was quite a long letter, and I will admit it ran to 8 pages, and I was concerned about the length, but there was so much we had to convey and purvey. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. But finding out that this monitoring officer spoken to a member of the public, not surprised that when we sent this to Cheshire East, and we sent it on the 7th of December, I'm not surprised. Do you know what? We had to write to chase up to get a response, to get an acknowledgement. I think the contents of that letter shook Cheshire East, to be absolutely fair and honest. We were hoping to have some kind of pointer to let us know what was going to happen, and we made it very clear in our letters that we wanted to be involved in the decision-making process and the assessment, because we were the ones in possession of the evidence. That this could not be done behind closed doors. I have to say our confidence wasn't very high in Cheshire East because, well, put it this way, we'd asked this before and they had messed it up, and now they'd had a big opportunity to do an investigation to actually get down to the truth of Anfield Parish Council, and they'd even messed that up, and messed it up in such a severe and sinister way as to have an investigation and a set of reports that were just full of lies and didn't have a word of honesty in them at all. They had nothing. They absolutely had nothing. And I'm going to go on record saying this. It was embarrassing. It was severely embarrassing. I don't know why Cheshire East did that. I don't know, but look, they chose to do it. So we sat patiently on that one. And still, we had to deal with more formal complaints against media outlets for giving Jackie Weaver a stage, and also playing excerpts of an illegal video. And we were not happy. We were physically not happy at all. It was a difficult time, very, very difficult time for us. So people understand what this monitoring officer had done at this time, which also made it hard for us, is we were put on notification that there was more emails now available from a former Cheshire East councillor. At that time, is now still a former Cheshire East councillor, which showed their email conversation with Jackie Weaver, We were told that they were going to be made available to us and that they were going to be quite revealing. Of course, Barry, myself and Brian, we had no idea what was in these emails, but we look forward to getting them. Needless to say, we filed a formal complaint against the monitoring officer. Christmas came and went. We had no reply. The first inkling of any reply we got, and I'll read this one to you, was the outcome of our formal complaint against the monitoring officer. And you will not believe the absolute rubbish that had gone on. For starters, in the fourth paragraph of the letter that was sent to us by Jane Burns, then Director of Corporate Services, she writes, Cheshire East Council's arrangements for dealing with standards complaints, a copy of which is enclosed for your ease of reference, is the publicly available document which sets out how standards complaints will be approached. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I don't think a serious formal complaint against the monitoring officer is a standards complaint. To me, I couldn't understand how on earth such a howler of a mistake had been made. I couldn't. This is not a standards complaint. And I assessed it, and 3 other people assessed it, and we all came to the same conclusion. The wrong procedure had been used for this complaint. We're talking about an employee who has to be put there by operation statute. He's not an elected official, as in a council member of Cheshire East or a member of the Cloud Council. So the wrong procedure was used. I just couldn't believe that had happened. And we read on through the letter, and it just got worse and worse and worse the more we read it. She waffles about the document makes it clear that the process is confidential and must be treated as such by those involved. Yeah, we know that. Yeah. She says the document also specifically sets out that following the preparation of any draft investigator's report, a copy of that document will be sent to both the complainant and the subject member for comment. This is to ensure fairness and is compliant with the principles of natural justice. Sorry, this is Cheshire East. After what the monitoring officer's done, they've written, this is to ensure fairness and is compliant with the principles of natural justice. Well, you've got a monitoring officer at that time who wouldn't have no idea what natural justice was, so we got up off the ground and bit him on the arse. I'm sorry to say that, well, that's a fact. Okay? She waffles on. Copies of the draft investigator's report were provided to the complainants by email. No, they weren't. The covering letter/email reiterated clearly that the draft reports were 1, not final, and 2 were provided in confidence. Well, why then was Peter Moore waffling about the contents of them in a public forum in regards to an article published in the local press? So it says, from the evidence provided, I conclude that the monitoring officer has not departed from the council's published arrangements for dealing with complaints. Well, he has. So you've looked at the evidence provided, which shows quite clearly the verbal testimony of a person in the public forum at the November meeting. Clearly says you spoke with the monitoring officer. We provided you with a copy of the video. We provided you with a copy of what Peter Moore had said, which quite clearly shown that he was in possession of information that he shouldn't have had. So there's been a breach of confidentiality. I made it quite clear. In the letter, it was made quite clear by all of us. We actually got somebody who worked on investigations for, at that time, 12.5 years, which is a lot more now. And 6 of those at that time was a professional. Can you guess who that was? What is? Me. What you do, and here's the big thing here, what you do is when you've done your investigation and you've compiled your report is then at the stage where it's going to be agreed by all subject members to the investigation, complainants, and your client. What you do is you get them all to sign what is called a non-disclosure agreement and/or a confidentiality agreement, so that that investigation and its integrity does not get hammered because somebody can't keep their mouth shut, who can't stop the hands wandering and showing someone. In such an NDA or non-disclosure agreement or confidentiality agreement, it actually states that if there's a breach of confidentiality, the investigation restarts, and it starts with investigations that breach confidentiality, and that there is a high risk somebody's going to get prosecuted for it. There is a possibility, there's a high risk. I will admit, never happened to me, never seen it done. I've never had a breach of confidentiality, so that would be foreign ground for me to travel even all these years on. But I do know investigators who have had to deal with that, and it is not easy because invariably people will lie. So back to Cheshire's letter. So from the evidence provided, she's concluded the monitoring officer has not departed from the council's published arrangements for dealing with complaints. Well, he has. So in other words, what that said to us is you've ignored the evidence. She goes on, neither is there any evidence that the monitoring officer condoned or authorised any disclosure of confidential material by any third party. Well, look, he did, and he didn't take any action to make sure it didn't happen. She goes on, the council and its monitoring officer in this instance provided material legitimately and on a confidential basis to a complainant, as it should have done through the agency of the investigating officer, and is not responsible for any breach of confidence that may or may not have been subsequently occasioned by that complaint or any third party. Well, that is where, dear Jane, you were completely wrong. Wake up, Flossie. You're wrong. You've got to have a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement for things like this. And that monitoring officer failed and failed miserably. And we also caught him with his pants down with a member of the public going into a public forum of the November 2021 HBC meeting, saying that he'd been quite happily speaking on the phone with a monitoring officer about the ins and outs, contents and investigations and whether certain things were or were not. Pathetic. So to write that in there, that tells me you've just looked at this, couldn't be bothered to read the letter, couldn't be bothered to look at the evidence, and you're just going to write any old wish-wash. She puts in bold, in conclusion, I'm satisfied, having considered the matter very carefully, that your complaint is without merit and is not upheld. Well, number one, let's have a look at what you have done. You've failed to consider the evidence. Okay. You've used the wrong procedure. You've not got a lot going for you, have you? So you can bet your bottom dollar what we did. We wrote back, and this time the legal team became involved, because when we got this, and this came on the 5th of January, I'll tell you straight right now, about 4 or 5 days after that, a big decision was made. And it was this. We were going to overturn those investigations come what may. We were going to walk through, if need be, hellfire and brimstone. We were going to go to the ends of the earth, and we were going to do what was required. So we did. As fate would have it, a good friend of mine, who's a barrister in KC, is an expert with this, and we had a little bit of a chat, and he set it all up. And the hard work of turning these investigations over started here and now. Of course, we still had complaints, formal complaints made about Jackie Weaver spouting lies in the media. And look, apart from Ipso, which I think should be renamed Dipso, for what it's worth, it's useless. We were doing quite well. We were doing quite well indeed. However, what we did get, and this is going to make you laugh. I hope it does. We got an email from Barry Olivers on the 24th of January, attached to which was a formal complaint made against him vis-a-vis the newsletter. And Cheshire East had assessed it and said they were going to run with it as a formal complaint. Wrong. Big mistake. That newsletter was not put out by a councillor, by an individual. It was put out by a political party. And Cheshire East and the idiot that made the formal complaint, I am going to reveal who that was, as well as read out what that imbecile actually wrote. Because, of course, with Barry being dead now, no confidentiality on it, so there you go. You can't impinge on the freedom of speech of a political party in this country, unless, of course, it does or says something that's not right, that's not in keeping. It could be militant, racist. Yes, exactly. This wasn't. What this did was tell the truth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually break some ground here, and I am actually going to reveal who made that formal complaint and what he wrote. Drum roll, or think of it. The author of the formal complaint was John Smith. So, the first thing I said when I saw the formal complaint, what he'd written, I said, this can't be accepted anyway. It's untrue. Because it did start once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away, so it's already wishy-washy and untrue. But as it was, what he'd written was crap. And I'm going to tell you what he's written. Okay? Yeah. This is what this complete cowboy writes. Okay? Firstly, he accuses Barry, in amongst all things, of acting without selflessness, acting without integrity, failing to remain objective, failing to exercise independent judgment, treating others with courtesy, and attempting to intimidate any person. Bullshit. Of course, this was forwarded to our legal team and they took a very dim view of it. But this is what he says. He attaches a copy of the Halford Star, which, by the way, was approved by the MP. We gave her a copy, yeah? He writes, CEC Ward Councillor B. Burkill has published and distributed a document entitled The Halford Star. Well done. It says, the document has a subtitle of A Newsletter from Your Handforth Ratepayers Councillors. The above subtitle would indicate more than one author of this document. Well done. However, there is only one Handforth Ratepayers Councillor, Ward Councillor B. Burkill. Right, okay. I don't know what he's trying to get across there. It don't make any sense to me. Yeah? The footnote to the document also states that it was published by Handforth Ratepayers Association, and he gave Barry's address here in Handforth. He then says, it really must be Sherlock Holmes here. Not. Ward Councillor Burkill was observed to be involved in delivering the document to houses in the Handforth South Ward. Just the South Ward, mate? He was on the West Ward. Yeah. As well as the South Ward, and he even did some on the East Ward. Well done for saying he's on one ward, you know. It's what usually happens when the ratepayers deliver a newsletter. Our members, and in this case he was our leader, goes out and delivers it. He said, Ward Councillor can therefore clearly be considered responsible for the publication of the edition of the Halford Star, its content and distribution, which took place in November 2021. Wrong. It's the party, not the person. So we now know we're dealing with an idiot that doesn't understand the meaning of a party political newsletter, because if he had a done, he's even given it away. It was published by the Handforth Ratepayers Association, and he's not given the full title. It was on the newsletter, Independent Party, which is a registered political party in this country, now or was then, and gave the party's address. So it was published by the party, not the ward councillor, not the person. So he's now just gone and completely undermined and torpedoed his claim. Well done, Einstein. Well done. So, he goes on. False information and accusations regarding the behaviour of Councillor Susan Moore and Councillor John Smith have been published in this document. No, it hasn't. Accusations of acting illegally in the calling of meetings and intentionally acting in a manner which would prevent other members of the council being allowed to vote, which was correct. All the evidence there, it was there, pointed to it, showed it. Yeah. He goes on, the only possible reason for Councillor Burkill to fabricate the events detailed in the document would be to cast doubt on the legitimacy of actions taken by Councillors Moore and Smith to hold an extraordinary meeting. No, it's to tell the electorate the truth and how you connived to call an illegal meeting, that you didn't send a requisition for, and then you've attempted to lie about it, and now to this date you're trying to cover it up. We decided as a party that could not be covered up. That's our right as a political party. Yeah, we took that right. The idiot goes on. It is understood that the events detailed below refer to a time when Councillor Berkeley was a member of Hanford Parish Council. However, the production of this particular issue of the Hanford Star and publication of untrue allegations and subsequent distribution throughout Hanford by Councillor Berkeley have taken place whilst in the position of Chester East Ward Councillor for Hanford. And a copy of the Hanford Star document will accompany this complaint. The false accusations are detailed as follows. So he goes on. Accusation 1. No proper request was made to the chairman and no legally required agenda was provided for his consideration in advance of any public notices. He again goes, response. The following shows the dates of emails, and he puts all the emails down. This blockhead puts all the emails down, right? Okay. But he doesn't produce the emails. Yeah? He doesn't. He goes on trying to say, with the blatant lie, that Brian refused to call that meeting. Brian didn't refuse to call that meeting. Brian couldn't allow the 2 meetings of the 10th of December for one good reason. One, no requisition, or 2 good reasons. One, no requisition and no agenda. So he goes on and on and on like this. We did note in the newsletter that the only way they could have a meeting like they did was to make sure the official HBC Zoom account, which should have been used, was not used, so that a takeover of the meetings and the expulsion of certain members, including both the chairman and vice chairman, could occur so they could not vote. He tells another lie in his response here to that. The chairman had changed the HPC Zoom password. No, he hadn't. Without informing the meeting's organisers, Councillors Moore and Smith. No, he hadn't. Nothing like that had happened. The password was still the same. I was in possession of it, so was Brian. We kept it the same as Ashley had set it. He goes and said there was no communication from the chairman indicating that he had taken note of the emails sent to him requesting an extraordinary meeting by Councillor Moore and Smith. Well, you didn't send that. You never sent any such request. So again, this is pure invention. It's lying. You can see the psychosis part coming out, like I've previously mentioned about him. Like the famous 5 found about him. Yeah. We then, of course, bring up the fact it was using a private Zoom account, that of Jackie Weaver. He still goes saying there was no certainty, saying, he goes, due to the lack of response from the chairman, there was no certainty of his attendance or his use of the HPC Zoom account. Well, that's rubbish. That's absolute rubbish. He even says that Councillor Berkeley, as chair of the HPC and Employment Committee, had unlawfully suspended the parish clerk. No, he hadn't. That's now been proven to be totally lawful. Yeah. This is cheap here from Smithy. He says, it should be noted that the manufactured reasons quoted in the Hanford Star for the chairman and vice chairman being unable to vote was not part of some master plan. Oh yeah, it was. It's called coup d'etat. He said, Councillors Moore and Smith did not know for certain that the chair or Councillor Berkeley and Bruton would be attending and were unaware of the comments which the chair would make at the start of the meeting. That's absolute bull. You knew there was a problem. You knew that we were going to oppose that. So you're completely lying there. You're completely lying. He then goes waffling on about what happened at the start of the meeting, but I'm going to put it like this because I don't want this video to be too long. He doesn't quote anything properly. He doesn't. So Barry gave me and Brian this, and me and Brian decided, right, we're gonna go to town on this one. So we both did statements, and I'll tell you my statement. It was an official witness statement. Yeah, and I made it in my capacity, not just a member of the party, but its official treasurer. Yeah. It was actually written by 5 people working on behalf of the party only after receipt of critical legal advice giving me clearance to write the newsletter. I hasten to add that the solicitor concerned did so thoroughly evaluate the evidence and advised that it was correct, truthful and could be reported on without reservation. Said legal advice came to a personal cost to each of us of £1,200. That was £1,000 plus that each. If the solicitor had advised not to write the said publication, we would not have written it. The said publication is political opinion based on a factually proven and honest evidence. No part of its contents was manufactured, false or misleading. Therefore, Counsel Smith's claims that they are invented is pure invention on his behalf, has no merit or basis, and are completely risible. I make this statement. I support of in a defence of Councillor Burkle to the mischievous and underhand formal complaint lodged by Councillor Smith, Chair of Handforth Town Council. I should have written Handforth Parish Council. That was being correct. But I made it very clear in my statement that John Smith had lied, that this was not written on by Barry Burkle. This is written by an independent team of 5, only after taking legal advice. And I'll give you a laugh. John Smith actually claimed that Brian Tolver disconnected himself from the meetings of December the 10th. And that he left of his own volition. I mean, what realm of fantasy is Smith living in? What realm of fantasy is he residing in? Because I tell you what, I don't want to go there. I'm in no hurry to go there. None whatsoever. Also, in his formal complaint, Smithy claims that myself and Councillor Burkle, we were removed to a waiting room. It's just fanciful and pure fiction. It's nonsense. We were kicked straight out. Absolutely kicked straight out. My witness statement ran to 4 1/4 pages and I signed it. And I made it quite clear that Barry had no case to answer whatsoever. I made it quite clear when I was asked. I thought John Smith again was trying to do what he's not very good at, bullying. Even Brian did a statement, and he asserted that all the accusations were wholly untrue. Particularly, one thing me and Brian did go to great lengths for us to point out is that no time did either he nor I have any access to the HPC Zoom system nor its password. We could get onto it. We could use that, but we had no way of changing its password at all. No, that was locked off to us. Yeah, that was locked on. We were quite cross that Ashley had done that because we were concerned that he'd share the password with, the babies, and they would bring about their own meetings and unlawfully use that. Yeah. So Barry had got statements from us straight off. Even my dad did one. We even got, because I was one of the 5 people who wrote that newsletter, we even got the other 4 to say, look, here you are. We even provided with one of the witness statements, a full copy of the witness statement, a full copy of the witness statement, the legal advice showing that what we've been told, we could do it. What I thought was particularly disgusting, and we did have to go back to a particular standards issue that Barry had been involved in back when it was Macclesfield Borough Council, and that was held a situation where if it's published by a political party, then there's no case to answer by its leader. It's the political party. So I'll tell you this now. We hammered that in, and we dealt with that. The last thing we had to deal with in January was another stupid response from Cheshire East, who ignored our letter that was sent back to them saying you've got this all wrong, and said, oh, you've got to go to the LGO. Well, we can't go to the LGO. Well, Barry couldn't because he was a councillor, and because these issues that we were talking about happened at a time when we were councillors, we were precluded by law, and Cheshire East knew that, but they'd written in a letter, you may as well take it off to the LGO. And they have to have known full well that we couldn't go to the LGO. Well, that was January, February. Well, not January, February, I apologise. End November 2021, December 2021, and into January of 2022. There's still more to come, particularly the result of that idiotic formal complaint. That's this episode, but following this is part one of a special. I'm not going to spoil that special for you. I'm going to let you go and get a cup of tea, sit back, and get ready for part one. Thanks.